Hello, my name is Jeff Yelton. This is another edition of What's in the Box from the Two-Way Radio Center. Today we're going to be talking about the Vertex Standard VX-231 radio. Vertex Standard is a company that is owned by Motorola. Between Motorola and Vertex Standard, they have about 85% market share worldwide. So I think that says a great deal about the brand image and the quality of the radios that we're going to be talking about today. This is the VX-231 that comes in this box. Before I open it up, I wanted to just show you one thing, and that is on the side of the box they have a tag on this side and this side right here that have both the model number and the serial number on it. You want to cut that out when you get this box and save it, especially if Vertex is running a rebate, which they often do throughout the year, where you can get dollars back for any number of radios that you buy after 6. But they usually require that you have that a tag from this box showing that you did purchase the radios. So this is the VX-231. The VX-231 is a 5-watt 16-channel radio. And so 5 watts is the most powerful radio, handheld radio that you can get per the FCC in the United States. 16 channels obviously is quite a few channels. And I've seen some radios that are 2 and 3 and 4 watts but don't have the full 16 channels. So 5 watts, 16 channels. The 5 watts gets you an area of about 350,000 square feet of coverage up to about 30 stories. So it's a very powerful radio, and for most business commercial uses, when you're on site, this is a radio that will handle pretty much any situation that comes up. The radio is a very well-built radio. It's built to a military 810 spec. I won't go through all what that means, but that basically just talks about the drop specs of it, how much moisture it can handle and still operate, dust, and what type of rough environment that you're going to actually operate the radio in. So it operates to a very high level of standards set by the military. It comes in 2 separate radios or frequencies. You have the UHF frequency, ultra high frequency, and you have VHF. And if you'll just remember, UHF is probably the radio that you tend to see most often used in an urban environment, and a VHF radio tends to be when you're a little bit more open in the territory, in the area that you're operating in. Like you might be out on the ocean, you might be out on a lake, you might be somewhere, let's say out in Arizona, where you have a lot of flat land and you don't have a lot of buildings to get in the way of it. But UHF is a better urban frequency to use for your radio. So when you're ordering the radios, make sure you get the right radio. This is the radio. When you open it up, and I want to just show you right here that usually sitting right in the back where the battery goes is this little plastic bag. You want to be careful when you open it up so that you don't lose this. What's inside of this bag is the cover that goes over the connection ports where you plug in your headsets. Vertex is obviously made for a commercial environment, and so they have a very strong cover that goes over this that has 2 screws to cover it up to make sure that you can't get any grit or grime in there if you're not going to use a headset. So we're going to come back to the radio in just a minute. Also in the box is the operating manual. This operating manual can be found online. If you'll just go in and Google it, you'll be able to just Google VX231 and you'll be able to find it. I suggest that you get a hold of that operating manual and take a look at it, because this radio has so many features in it. I won't be able to cover them all today, and you want to make sure that you fully understand all the things that this radio can do before you buy it. You have the safety guide specs here, which you want to make sure that you take a look at, and as well as a quick start guide, which is only about a page long and comes in multiple languages. You also have an antenna. This is the, which one is this? I believe this is the ATU 6D antenna that goes on this radio. You have the female end of the antenna, and on the top of the radio you have the male end, and you just screw that right on just like that. Oop. Just about to misthread it there. There you go. And so that's how the antenna fits on the radio. Also have a lithium-ion battery. This battery will last somewhere in the neighborhood of about 9 to 12 hours. It's a very thin battery, you can see this battery. On the back of it, it's got the 3 contact points for the charger, and on the top of it are the 2 contact points that will attach to the top of the battery. As I said, this is a battery that will last between 9 to 12 hours. You can have an extended life battery that will last somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 hours, which is an option for this radio. But this 9 to 12 hour battery is the one that comes with it. You take the top connectors, go to the back of the radio, and you'll see the connectors at the top. You just match those up and you push it in, and that connects the battery to the back of the radio. If you want to take the battery off, at the end of the radio there's a little slide. You just slide that, and wait a minute, you just slide that and the battery pops right off. So let me just put this back on. This is the radio, so as the radio is facing you, on the right top is the on-off button, and when you turn it on you'll be able to hear it chirp. In the middle, you choose one of the 16 channels that you want to listen to or transmit on. On the right side of the radio, you have the where you put in the headset. Once again, this is a positive contact headset, meaning that on some radios you put the headsets into the radio and it just has tension that holds the connectors in. With the Vertex radio, when you put in the headset, you actually use 2 screws on it so it stays in there. And once again, Vertex did this to stand up to a much more rugged environment that you might find in a commercial environment. On the left side of the radio is the push-to-talk button. And then at the bottom you have 2 programmable buttons right here along the side. So that's the radio. You also have a belt clip that comes with it. It's got a screw that sits right here in the top, and you take that screw, you go to the back of the radio, and you can see right here where you actually set that screw in, and you just hold it down, and you take a Phillips head screwdriver and you just take that screw and you screw it down. Once again, this is something that a lot of other radios don't have. They have it to where the belt clip just kind of clips onto the back of the radio. But Vertex, obviously, as I've said multiple times, is going after a more commercial environment. Once you have the belt clip on there, you can see that it would attach just like that. So that's the full radio. This radio is 4.3 inches high, 2.3 inches wide, and about 1.2 inches thick. So it's a very compact radio, but a very powerful radio. Last thing in the box is the charger. Let me just open this up. You first have the base of the charger. This is the charger. You have a light that's on the front of it that shows you when the battery is charging. You have the contact points that the radio is going to set into the cradle. And then on the bottom of it, in this indention, you can see where I can stick my finger in here. Let me turn it over like this, is where you actually attach the power cord to it. And I wanted to show you that because it's not, if you're not used to it, you just wouldn't know it right off the bat. But you take this and you attach it right here, and then there is a slit on the back of the charger, and you run the wire through that slit so that it'll sit down flat on the table, and it'll keep it from pulling out. And then you take the radio, where you have the 3 contacts on the back, and you set that in just like that, and then the battery will charge. So that's the radio. There are a few features that I do want to cover, even though I can't cover all of the features, as I said earlier, but there are a few that I think are very important. 2 of them have to do with safety. One of them is an emergency notification feature, and what that does is you can program this radio so that if you hit a single button and then you leave the radio alone, it will continuously send out an emergency signal. Let me give you an example of that. If you're in a retail environment and someone came in to rob your store, instead of being able to pick up the phone and hold down the push-to-talk and say, "I'm being robbed," you could literally hit one button and not touch the radio, and it would continuously send out an emergency signal to anybody that was on your channel to let them know that you needed help. The other feature is something called the lone worker feature. And the lone worker feature can be programmed into the radio, and what that does is you can set an amount of time on the radio, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is that you wanted to choose. And if the worker does not push the push-to-talk button within that time period, then it will start sending out an emergency signal. So as an example, you might be working on a utility for a utility company, and you might be on the job and you might get electrocuted, or you may get hurt, and you can't ask for somebody to come and help you because of your injury. Well, since you have not pushed that button within that time frame that you had set on this radio, then it would start sending out an emergency alert signal to everybody so that they would know to come and help you. The last feature that I want to talk about is something called Vox, or voice activation. If you have the correct headset, a Vox-capable headset plugged into this radio, then you can speak into the microphone and it will automatically transmit whenever you speak. You do not have to hit the push-to-talk button on the side of the radio, or you don't have to hit the push the push-to-talk button on your headset. When you speak, it automatically transmits, and when you stop speaking, it doesn't transmit. So a place that you might be able to use this is in a warehouse. If you were doing picking in a warehouse and you needed to use your hands to pick with, but you also needed to communicate with someone, that would be an example of where you might be able to use Vox. As I said, this radio can be programmed with multiple features. You do need to get the user's manual and take a look at that to see all the features that you can get. A lot of the features can be programmed with the buttons already on the radio, but probably the most efficient way to do it is to download the free software to program this radio into your computer. Excuse me. And then if you do that, what you'll want to do is you want to get a pigtail, which is a short little wire connector that attaches to the radio. You'll also need a USB cable that attaches to that pigtail, which goes into your computer, and then you'd be able to program that computer. And the way you do that is it's really not programming, it's actually just choosing features of the radios, turning them on or turning them off in the software, saving it as a file, and then you can download it into one radio or multiple radios. And so you tend to keep a profile of a certain type of radio with the features that you want. You save that as a file, and then you can download that into as many radios as you want. That is the Vertex 231, a very rugged radio, packed with a ton of features, a very powerful radio at 5 watts, and something that's a good value. It's good for the amount of money that it would cost you. I'm Jeff Yelton. This is What's in the Box with the Two-Way Radio Center, and thank you for listening.